become? The answer is here. Look at Senator James Lomenen Ekomwa. Thanks to education, the guy, the distinguished senator, has come up with this great thinking. Let us take food and water to Turkana, to Baringo, to Lamu, Mr. Speaker, to Garissa, to Marsabit, to Mandera, so that the insecurity can end. Some of the top lawyers in this country, one of them, Ahmed Nasser, he comes from Mandera. But because thanks to education he broke through, you can see how he has defined the legal landscape in this country. Mr. Speaker, one can cry, but we can't cry because we are old men. We can only raise our voices, which brings me to my first complaint. What are we doing as leaders? We come to Nairobi to cut deals, connivance. Mr. Speaker, the drafters of the Constitution created the Constitution and provided under Article 204 that there shall be an equalization fund that will take money deliberately to these counties so that they can have water, health services, and good roads that can allow food and water to flow. And Mr. Speaker, what happens when we come to Nairobi? The ASAL senators are here, and the ASAL counties are known. So what happens? Some leaders in Nairobi from CRA, supported by a few senators, they go and increase the number of counties that are supposed to benefit from this money so that they fight for this little money with Turkana. Mr. Speaker, you will cry. They are telling us that Bungoma County is one such a county. It is listed. Mr. Speaker, at Kericho County is one such a county is supposed to compete for funds with ASAL. That Mr. Speaker, Meru is such a county. That Mr. Speaker, Murang'a is one of them. They are not. They are not. Why would Murang'a compete for equalization fund when Murang'a is the reason why those regions are unequal? We are going to stand in this house and refuse to allow money to come to Kakamega, money which was meant for Turkana.
Senator Samson Chelagay, you have a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, is it in order for Senator Boni Khalwale, who is the majority whip, by the way, to mislead the House? Is he aware in shareable revenue formula, the counties that is purporting do not get enough resources? And I said on the floor yesterday, are these counties that are being ravaged by drought? I said for the last 10 years, Turkana County has received more than 120 billion. Yet Nandi has received the less amount, Mr. Speaker. It is the corruption. In fact, when you look at most of the money that's being returned to Treasury, Mr. Speaker, as a news that stays with the account, comes from these counties. Mandera, Turkana is returning as high as 4 billion unused money to Treasury. Is it in order to mislead this House that counties that are purported not to have, or counties that are not affected by drought, that they are eating too much from these counties, Mr. Speaker? Secondly, when you look the reading of Article 204 on the Equalization Fund, it is supposed only to provide for basic services like water, roads, health facilities, and electricity to marginalized areas. Yes. It does not provide for irrigation, Mr. Speaker. It is the counties to use shareable revenue to come up with irrigation schemes to plant their food. Under Article 204, Mr. Speaker, on Equalization Fund, it is even in Nandi, where you come from. Mr. Speaker, where I come from, part of Tindre towards Kisumu, we have landslides, Mr. Speaker. It talks about marginalized and disadvantaged areas. It does not only restrict itself to drought and famine. It talks about other disasters, including landslides, including, Mr. Speaker, the earthquakes, among others, Mr. Speaker. So is it in order And we fought about it, Mr. Speaker, and you were in Parliament when we fought last session over allocation of revenue. And we came up with win-win formula where each and every county, Mr. Speaker, Senator Boni Khalwale should be asking the counties that are affected for drought and famine, where did they put the money? Where is 120 billion that went to Turkana? Where is even one single irrigation scheme? Why is it in Lysamis? There are dry boreholes. And yet we have allocated billions and billions of shillings over and above these counties that are purported like Kiambu, and in fact we were fair. We would have said 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling. But we decided that let us overlook and give a chance to the counties that suffer. So what you should be doing as counties affected by drought and famine, address corruption in your counties. Let those, Mr. Speaker, let those governors be held for accountability. We cannot lie to Kenyans, Mr. Speaker.
Because I thought you contributed to his motion yesterday.
Mr. Speaker.
Then you are now most debating.
Mr. Speaker.
Moment. He has been agitated by that statement.
Mr. Speaker, I think Honorable Segei is out of order. Totally out of order. Because what we're talking is actually something that today is affecting 70% of Kenyans. Kenyans are dying, their animals are dying. It is not an issue of resource sharing. It is actually a situation that is now prevailing. So by telling us that we have taken taken a lot of money from the coffers, it is not true. Because I know Kapsabet has been developed from the days of the before Uhuru. Moi has developed it. The current government has developed it. Mr. Speaker, it is not an order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have no idea, listening to the point of order from Senator. Yes?
Sorry, it's important to be on one side. Let's hear from Senator Wamatinga Wahome. Is it a point of order?
Thank you very much. It's point of information. As Senator Boni Karware addresses the ASAL areas, he should not forget that Nyeri County is 52% of Nyeri County is ASAL. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Senator Regwe, Steve.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to inform the distinguished senator for Nandi, Senator Cherargei,
First year
that
whether he wants to be informed.
the drafters of the Constitution knew very well.
That's what I'm asking, because also you know.
Senator Cherargei, the Speaker has given me a chance to inform you.
You inform a member when he is on the floor. But after sitting and finishing his contribution or his point of order, you don't inform him when he is not on that particular matter.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for protecting me from Senator.
No, I'm not
Senator Cherargei.
protecting him, but
Honorable Speaker.
Just 1 minute.
Honorable Speaker, Senator Cherargei, I'm informing him that the drafters of our Constitution knew very well that there was an equality in Kenya. And they knew very well that they are putting a schedule in the Constitution that gives us counties as Kenya. And they knew very well that these counties will be funded. And they knew very well that after funding counties, there will be an equalization fund to bring these marginalized counties to the level of the developed counties. So he should not tell us that we tell Kenya or we tell Senate where our counties put their resources, because even those developed counties are given that resource. Thank you.
Now, Senators Chute Mohammed, Lematian Yezena, they're on both requests. I think they want to contribute to the motion. So those are not point of order.
Mr. Speaker, Honorable Chergei is completely out of order. What we are discussing today here is issues affecting us. He's like, you know, we have a wound. This wound, he's also touching that wound. He's hitting us. And I would like to say this, Mr. Speaker, Article 43. Article 43. 1 minute. Article 43, 1A to F, 2 and 3 is very clear. It says, every person has the right to the highest attainable standard of health, which includes the right to health care services, including reproductivity health care, B, to accessible and adequate housing and to reasonable standard of sanitation, C, to be free from hunger and to have adequate food of acceptable quality, D, to clean and safe water in adequate quantities, E, to social security, and, Mr. Speaker, to education. 2, the person shall not be denied emergency medical treatment. Number 3, the state shall provide appropriate social security to persons who are unable to support themselves and their dependents. Mr. Chergei is telling us, Mr. Speaker, he's telling us that we don't have a problem now. Mr. Speaker, we have issues we've been talking since yesterday. Please. He was talking about bumper harvest. We don't have anything. Give us food. If you can donate some food to Marsabit and Turkana, we'll highly appreciate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chelagei.
Mr. Speaker, according to Constitution Article 202, Sub-Article 2, the county governments may be given additional allocations from the national government share of the revenue, either conditionally or unconditionally. When you look at Article 203, it says counties can be given further. Mr. Speaker, while I empathize and sympathize with Kenyans over 4 million that suffer from hunger, I'm just calling out for accountability and transparency from county governments. Why are senators protecting their counties, yet we know money is going there? What is Mandera County government doing to provide food for the suffering Kenyans in Mandera? What is happening in Turkana in terms of, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, in fact, as we talk today in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, the office of the Deputy President has been providing food to these regions that is affected by hunger, Mr. Speaker. What I'm calling upon is accountability and transparency of county governments that are affected by famine, Mr. Speaker. And the senator should be aware that no county government needs PRO in terms of protection, in terms of accountability, Mr. Speaker. So we cannot sit here in Senate and say, because county governments that are affected by famine and drought, they should be shielded during the times of emergency, Mr. Speaker. Accountability must be provided, Mr. Speaker, and those county governments must account for the money that we give them, Mr. Speaker. Or we shall refer to 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling.
We defeated you.
Senator Chelagei, you have caused a lot of heat this afternoon. Therefore, I want us to proceed with the motion. If you get an opportunity to debate, then you can put in your issues as you debate, including the point of order from Senator Ezena. Because I can see you want to contribute, and there is time for you to contribute to this motion. 15 minutes. You're out of order, Senator Perez. Senator Perez, stop being emotional. You're out of order, Senator Perez. Stop exchanging with the Senator Chelagei. Let us first hear from Senator Ezena, then I'll give you 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I feel very, very attacked by Senator.
What is the standing order that you are now raising on? Not that you feel agitated, but you are no point of order.
Yes, I'm a point on order. Pardon? I want to, Mr. Speaker, I'm on a point of order against Senator Cherargei for misleading the House. I want to remind Senator Cherargei, Mr. Speaker, that the North can represent itself. That last week when there was an issue concerning maize and farmers, because these are pastoralists who left their way of life and went into farming, Senator Cherargei does not understand where the shoe pinches. And he cannot sit confidently beside Lelegwe and misrepresent Samburu and Turkana. The North has sufficient senators in this House to represent them, and we are going to address our issues as we know. Because when you spoke about the maize, we did not interfere. But now you are reducing the inequality in this country, especially in the North, to a mere issue of corruption. It's not enough, Mr. Speaker, for him to allege that it's corruption that's delaying the North. It is not enough. It's false and it's unfounded. Mr. Speaker, Senator Cherargei also needs to understand that there is a big difference between equity and equality. And that is far from corruption. Corruption may have contributed, but you cannot reduce the issues of marginalization in the North to corruption. Mr. Speaker, as far as I know, the Equalization Fund by the national government is supposed to address issues around water, healthcare, and roads. I want to remind Senator Cherargei that there are no roads in the North. The entire North is disconnected, and we need water and the health facilities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Zena, I will advise you to still sit and wait for your time to contribute so that you can give him the facts that you have. Because you have 15 minutes to debate this motion. Senator Tobiko, now you are comfortable. I can see now the steam is out. Yes. 1 minute. It's 1 minute. 1 minute, please don't debate. Just, yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, is Senator Cherargei in order to mislead not just this House, but the entire country? Mr. Speaker, when we experience losses in the agricultural communities, when coffee farmers, maize farmers receive subsidies from government, Mr. Speaker, why can the livestock keepers also, Mr. Speaker, be cushioned by the same government? Because we all belong to this country, unless he's telling us we belong to another country, Mr. Speaker. He's behaving like a very spoiled child with plenty, Mr. Speaker.
Now, Senator Bonney, you have how many minutes? A few minutes to... No, 5 minutes, please. 5 minutes.
I cannot, Mr. Speaker, sir, I cannot argue with the chair, but the practice, Mr. Speaker, is that when such a point of order starts, they usually hold the clock. They did.
Yes, they did.
I'll prosecute in 5 minutes,
yes.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, just one sentence to respond to this troublesome point of order. We are where we are today.
Senator Bonney, why are you stopping?
Okay, he's interrupting with my flow of thought.
You are protected.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, sir, we are where we are today, where little girls, the age mate of my daughters, and little boys, the age mate of my grandchildren, die because there is no food anywhere. It's not a laughing matter. This arrogance was there in 1965, and John Marie Seronei from Nandi, Jalagat Mutai, Martin Shikuku, Dr. Jibule Watsuma, J.M. Karaoke, they stood in this house and said no to sessional paper number 10 of 1965. It was this kind of arrogance that has brought us where we are. If I was allowed by the speaker today, I would have sung you a 1-minute Luya song. But I will not be allowed. Mr. Speaker, we sing and appeal to God that when your time finally comes and you lived on privilege, before the Lord opens for you, they will ask you to account for what you did for the poor because of your position of privilege. Ulirewa mareva kuli wachenda iwe. Uli wachenda iwe. Ulirewa mareva.
Order, Senator Kalwale.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I stand corrected.
Senator Kalwale, you know this is not a marketplace. And you cannot just start singing lawyer songs which nobody understands what you are saying.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand corrected and guided. Mr. Speaker, which brings me to my next point.
Can you withdraw the song because nobody knows what you have said?
Mr.
Mr.
Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I have retracted, Mr. Speaker. I have retracted, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, which brings me to an experience I had last month in Kigali. The arrogance you are seeing, we were in an international conference of the Inter-Parliamentary Union in Kigali. And the people of Pakistan, experiencing a worse disaster than the one we are having because of drought, came up and asked the international leadership, the parliaments of the world, over 1,000 who were there in Kigali. They asked us to make a resolution for the creation of a global fund that can be used to bring relief, not only to Pakistan, but even to Turkana. And you know something, Mr. Speaker, sir? The members of parliament from Africa refused. They did. Arrogance. Because they were saying it is Pakistan. I was there alone, boys. I didn't succeed for obvious reasons. But before we could walk out, the debate on Ukraine came. Where now we were crying that Ukraine should be protected from attacks from Russia because it is occasionally us shortage of fertilizer, food, and things. And the people from the developed world wondered, are we educated leaders from Africa or are we something less? I appeal to you, colleagues, members of parliament. The senator is asking for only 3 things. They are there. The issue of rapid response, introduction of feeding programs in primary schools, drilling water. Let us support him. Let us support him so that we can create a great Kenya that is equal. I want this speech when my son will one day have an opportunity to read the Hansard of this nation, to know that I had a father who was a man who cared about humanity. If I cannot support this motion, then I didn't go to medical school. Then I have not practiced medicine for over 30 years. But because I have, I support and urge this House to also step up. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, with those remarks. I support.
Okay. Senator Zeno.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I rise again to reiterate that the North is fully represented in this House. And with the same agility that the Senator for Nandi was defending his people, even against the ruling coalition, that's the Kenya Kwanza position on the importation of GMOs, which was going to directly affect his county because they are farmers, they are pastoralists who deviated from their way of livelihood to embrace farming, does not give him any right to speak against the issues in the North. Mr. Speaker, the Equalization Fund will go a long way in ensuring, first of all, that every Kenyan is put on an equal pedestal to be able to defend to be able to be in the same, enjoy the same rights as every other Kenyan citizen.
Just a minute,
Yes, sir.
Senator Lamartine. What is your point of order? Now my standing orders here.
Mr. Speaker, under Standing Order 98 of the Standing Orders and Standing Order 101, Mr. Speaker, is it in order for Senator Ezena Lemaletian to state that a senator belongs to only one region or one county? When we sit here, we are the senators of the Republic of Kenya. We are not the senators of their tribal chiefdom somewhere in Samburu. We are senators of the Republic of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, under Standing Order 98 and Standing Order 108, is she in order to mislead the House, Mr. Speaker? Can she only state, and Mr. Speaker, she needs to sit down because you have given me a chance. She's also violating standing orders. She should be out of order, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, is it in order to mislead the House that a senator is a senator of a specific county or a region, as opposed to being a senator of the Republic of Kenya? Is she in order, Mr. Speaker?
Don't see anything out of order.
Is it in order, Mr. Speaker?
I'm trying to align my thinking and my mind.
And also, Mr. Speaker, that he raised two issues. Mr. Speaker, is it in order to allege?
You are on a point of argument, not point of order.
Mr. Speaker, is it in order?
Senator Gloria.
Mr. Speaker, I stand on a point of order 98.4. The Speaker or the Chairperson shall order any senator who unnecessarily and persistently interrupts proceedings or consults loudly and disruptively to withdraw from the chamber and on Standing Order 121. Mr. Speaker, Senator Cherargei today is completely out of order. And under Standing Order 98.4, Mr. Speaker, we urge you to protect this House.
Senator Gloria, if you look again, 98.1, Senator Cherargei has all the privileges to study one as many times as possible, because you know he's an elected member of this House, so we cannot limit him. That is why I was insisting he should provide the point of order that he is raising against. So proceed and kindly finish up. Yes, yeah, you have some, maybe 12 minutes.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, Senator Cherargei had interrupted me. Sorry. Mr. Speaker, there is a reason why some counties are marginalized. And when you call a county marginalized, and being a marginalized minority county, we know where the shoe pinches. The entire North is affected by lack of equality in this country. Because, Mr. Speaker, if you look at our road infrastructure in the North, we do not have sufficient roads. We do not have proper health facilities that are up to any even basic standards. Some places, Mr. Speaker, do not have hospitals. And also the lack of water, Mr. Speaker. In
the appropriation of funds in Turkana County or any other county that you feel, and you are in this House. That was your prime role. You have said again that you are the Senate member of Kenya, not Nandi, not Turkana. You are given respect in the whole nation, and that's why we are saying, if you think people are drought hit now, people are suffering in anger now, if you think they are fair, why can't we? If God could allow us that you should not be in Nandi, you be in Turkana, senator for Turkana County, then you feel what we are feeling. Moreover, I want to inform again that this motion, we are talking of issues that are current. People are bleeding knees. People do not afford a meal in a day. People are thirsty. People are sick. And the way my sister Tobiko has said in Article 43, economic and social rights, and I want specifically to quote number 3, the state shall provide appropriate social security to persons who are unable to support themselves and their dependents. If pastoralists depend on livestock and they have lost livestock, what do you think they could do? What will their dependents live by? What will they eat? What will their neighbors eat? The Bible says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Do you love those counties? And if you love those counties, because you are a potential farmer, you could have first said that I'm donating 10 bags of maize to Turkana County, to Marsabit, to Samburu. We could have respected you. Because
Senator Lomonen, please address the chair.
yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. The other thing, to finalize, I am really perplexed and I'm really, because oil was discovered in Turkana County. Yes, I'm addressing the chair. Why I look? Oil was discovered in Turkana County. And 2 years ago, this oil, crude oil, was sold to a company called Chem China International. And 1.2 billion money was acquired. And not even a cent was taken back to the community of Turkana County. And we agreed in the law of petroleum law energy bill, we agreed that any revenue that accruing from the minerals or oil, 20% should go to the county, and 55% should go to the community. Now, not even a 1 cent has gone to Turkana County, meaning the community has been shortchanged. If we had given this 1.2 billion, we could not be crying. We could have purchased that. We could have purchased maize. We could have purchased. We could have drilled water, boreholes, dams, and whatever. But we have not been given our justice. Moreover, Sensational Paper number 10 of 1965. These community, northern communities were denied justice. They were denied hospitals, they were denied roads, they were denied water projects 50 years ago. How much is that denial of justice? If we were to quote, the 50 years that have gone that we were, the regime, the former regime, marginalized the northern part of Kenya. How much cost, when we cost such fund, how much? It is too much. We have never, even one time, if we try to think that the marginalization, this equalization is not enough. To equalize, to put us at par in these other regions, we still need more funds, we still need more intervention for us to be at par. We are not just competing at Kenyans, we are competing with the rest of the world, because any individual who has been created in the image of God needs water, needs food, needs health. I remember the Bible says when Jesus was teaching, he thought and reaching somewhere, he saw people who were angry, who were not listening carefully. And then he said to his disciples, please give 2 pieces of bread and 2 fish to feed these people so that they can listen to the word. This is what we are saying. There are people who are suffering now. They have empty stomach. They are thirsty. And we need them to vote for this government. You need them to vote for these policies. We need them to vote to participate in any community participation. Now, when you keep on losing the voters who are supposed to participate in devolution, do you think you have a future? To an extent of yesterday, people are feeding in the seeds of prosopis. They grind prosopis and feed themselves, they cook. Yes. This is a reality. This is not assumption. So, Mr. Speaker, there are emergency issues. The reasons why I'm saying we have categorized these issues, there are issues that are emerging. For example, water. There are areas that do not have water. There are areas that are very angry. They need food immediately. Whatever the president provided this relief food, it was not enough. So finally, Mr. Speaker, I want to say, to request my president, Article 58. Article 58 says, Mr. Speaker, Article 58 say, a state of emergency. A state of emergency may be declared only under Article 132(4)(d), which talks the roles of the president. 132(4). The president may subject to Article 58, declare a state of emergency. And this state of emergency has been supported by Article 58, which says a state of emergency may be declared only under Article 124(d), and only when the state is threatened by war, invasion, general insurrection, disorder, and natural disaster or other public emergency. So this is where we request our president to declare this issue of drought as an anger, as emergency, so that anybody, even us Kenyans for Kenyans, we can now commit ourselves to solve the problem. Our humanitarian organization can also commit to offer these services to these drought-hit areas. So that then we say, please let the president declare this one a natural disaster, because it is uncertainty. It is not man-made. It is for an issue of climate, global warming or climate change. It is not a man-made issue. It is an uncertainty. It's God who makes some of these things. He knows how he organizes, because God is in control. So, Mr. Speaker, I really concur, even members of senators who are here, if you are in a position to give in, to assist, to help, may the will of God be done. So, Mr. Speaker, I rise to reply this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Pursuant to Standing Order 82, the Speaker makes determination that the matter does not affect counties and puts the questions. Honorable Senators, I put the question that aware that Turkana County continues to experience extremely dry weather conditions, with the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reporting that the aggregate rainfall for the 6-month period during ending September 2022 represented only 21% of the normal rainfall. Further aware that the prevailing weather conditions have resulted in the drying up of wells, boreholes, loss of pasture and crops, therefore rendering any form of farming impossible. Acknowledging that the residents of the county are predominantly pastoralists who keep cattle, donkeys, camels and goats for food and income, and that the loss of this livestock is a loss of livelihood for them. Noting that the prevailing drought has resulted in the death of more than half of the livestock in the county, thereby pushing 800,000 residents to the brink of starvation and resulting in the highest ever rate of acute malnutrition in the county at 33%. Further noting that residents have been forced into migration with their livestock in search of pasture and water, which has exposed them to raids by bandits and resulting in children dropping out of school. Concerned that droughts have been recorded in the county since 1960s and that the frequency of their occurrence has progressively increased, with drought in the county becoming a yearly phenomenon. Cognizant that Article 43 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010 stipulates the rights of every person to be free from hunger, to have adequate food of acceptable quality, and to clean and safe water in adequate quantities, and obliges the state to provide social security to persons unable to support themselves and their dependents. Further cognizant that Article 11 of the United Nations International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights places further emphasis on the fundamental rights to food and obliges the state to take progressive steps towards achieving full realization of the right to adequate food. Now, therefore, the Senate urges the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, Water, Sanitation and Irrigation, and the Ministry of East Africa Community, the ASALs and Regional Development through the National Drought Management Authority, to come up with a policy framework to address the perennial drought in the county and to come up with policy programs addressing the current needs of the county to include: 1, you can take your seats, Senators. To include: 1, a rollout of rapid response initiative program of providing foodstuffs to the affected residents of the county to address immediate critical needs. An introduction of feeding program in schools across the county. 3, the drilling of water boreholes. And 4, an institution of a livestock offtake program to buy weak livestock. Honorable Senators, will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 12, motion, establishment of a parliamentary joint ad hoc committee on a legislative proposal to amend the constitution to entrench certain specialized funds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, before I move the motion, allow me to invite the chair to to guide me. Mr. Speaker, this is a very long motion to read. Our procedure is that we must read a motion when you're moving it. And I've just given notice, the House is aware of it. Is it okay if I can just say as read, so that then within the next 2 minutes I have finished, he has supported me, we vote, so as to allow the adjournment motion to have time. Mr. Speaker, guide me. As read.
Senator Majority Whip, having looked at the motion, it is not that very long to read. It's quite similar length to the one I just read. So, and the requirement is that when it's tabled, it has to be read as it is. So please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the guidance. And Mr. Speaker, I rise to move the motion for establishment of the Parliamentary Joint Ad Hoc Committee on a legislative proposal to amend the Constitution to entrench certain specialized funds. Mr. Speaker, that acknowledging the resolution of the National Assembly on the establishment of this ad hoc committee on a legislative proposal to amend the Constitution to entrench certain specialized funds transmitted as a message seeking concurrence of this Senate, recognizing that the need for a bicameral approach on the proposal prior to publication of the relevant bill, and acknowledging that the subject matter of the legislative proposal is premised on the mandate of Parliament under Article 256 of the Constitution on the amendment of the Constitution by parliamentary initiative. Now, therefore, Mr. Speaker, the Senate resolves, 1, to establish a joint parliamentary ad hoc committee on a proposal to amend the Constitution to entrench certain specialized funds comprising 11 members from each of the houses of Parliament to A, facilitate collection of views from senators during debate and inviting senators with similar or related proposals to make submissions before the committee. B, invite, engage with and consider submissions from stakeholders and relevant constitutional and statutory bodies with a law reform mandate, including the Attorney General and the commissions on independent officers established under Chapter 15 of the Constitution. And C, Mr. Speaker, in consultation with the sponsors, attempt to develop and recommend a harmonized version of the proposal arising from the submissions received. And D, report to the Houses of the Parliament within 90 days to enable the speakers to make a decision and give direction on whether or not the legislative proposal is to be published into a bill or not to be proceeded with. 2, that the officers of the clerk of the Houses of Parliament provide secretariat services to the Joint Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee in accordance with the standing orders. And 3, that the following senators represent the Senate in the Ad Hoc Committee. Senators Wakili Hilary Kiprotich Sigei MP, Rafael Chimera MP, Veronica Duati MP, Samson Cherargei MP, William Kiror MP, Danson Mungatana MP, Hamida Kibwana MP, Fatuma Dulo MP, Andrew Omutata MP, Catherine Moyeka MP, Eric Mogeni MP, Paul Thangwa MP, and Senator Tom Odhiambo Jenda MP. Mr. Speaker, this is a procedural motion, and in the interest of time, I don't wish to belabor the need for this ad hoc committee, because out there we have CDF projects, Mr. Speaker, that are now stuck. They are pending bills, Mr. Speaker. Contractors are expecting payment, Mr. Speaker, but this cannot take place. So we need to give it the best of our thought. 2, Mr. Speaker, the issue of the Senate Oversight Fund is critical because we are losing more money when the oversight role of Senate is not properly powered by sufficient funds. With those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I move and invite the deputy leader of the deputy minority whip to second my motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The deputy minority.
Sorry, deputy majority. Sorry, he has stepped out. I therefore ask Senator Cherargei from Nandi to second my motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, as my majority whip indicated, this is more of a procedural motion. I want to say only 2 things. 1, the amendment of Mr. Speaker, this ad hoc committee that has been requested, I'm happy that for the first time we appear to be concurrent. You remember in the several sessions, because of our sibling rivalry between the Senate and the National Assembly, we have not been working together to ensure we maximize, Mr. Speaker, our collective legislative role. So I commend the National Assembly for ensuring that the ad hoc committee involves both the Senate and the National Assembly. Second, Mr. Speaker, the amendment of the Constitution is a going concern. There will always be proposals, and Article 256 talks about amendment by parliamentary initiative, Mr. Speaker, and Article 257 talks about amendment by popular initiative, Mr. Speaker. And Kenyans should be aware that the amendment of the Constitution as provided by Article 255, there is a specific, Mr. Speaker, of when it can be amended through a parliamentary initiative and through a popular initiative. Mr. Speaker, you cannot amend this Constitution through parliamentary initiative on the issue of supremacy of this Constitution, the territory of Kenya, sovereignty of the people, the national values and principles of governance, the Bill of Rights, the term of office of the President, the independence of judiciary and the commission and independent officers to which Chapter 15 applies, the functions of Parliament, the objects and principles and structure of devolved government, and the provisions of this chapter. So, Mr. Speaker, these are specific chapters of the Constitution that you cannot amend through through parliamentary initiative. Parliamentary initiative is what we are trying to do to entrench. We cannot underestimate the importance of CDF, Mr. Speaker. Although I've seen new developments by the advice from Attorney General J.B. Muturi, who has directed that the decision of the Supreme Court did not affect the release of CDF money, and I've seen that he has advised the National Treasury to release a tranche of 2 billion per week, Mr. Speaker, to the CDF so that our children who depend on bursary, development in schools, and I know Senator Cheptumo used to serve as Member of Parliament of Baringo North and therefore is well versed with issues of CDF. So there is a new development by the Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya, Justin Muturi, that the law or the interpretation of the Supreme Court did not affect in any way the release of CDF money. And I agree that Senate needs to be robust, Mr. Speaker, in terms of its oversized role. We need to entrench ourselves, Mr. Speaker. We have been having push and pull today over the role of the Senate in terms of ensuring that we account the money that we disperse to the counties, Mr. Speaker. There is nothing to show for it. But how do we facilitate and ensure senators are able to do social audits, forensic audits, project inspections, by only ensuring that we are properly facilitated. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I agree that this ad hoc committee will provide direction. We'll listen, Mr. Speaker. As a member of this ad hoc committee, we'll listen to all stakeholders. We will do our job as provided by Article 118 on public participation of Parliament to ensure all Kenyans can give their views, Mr. Speaker, and therefore amendment through parliamentary initiative. I think this is one of the bipartisan, and I appeal to both minority and majority side. Let us come together, pass this amendment, amend the Constitution, and trade these specialized funds in terms of CDF and the funds that are meant for Senate for oversight, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks and in the interest of time, I therefore beg to second this motion, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, I propose the question that acknowledging the resolution of the National Assembly on the establishment of an ad hoc committee on a legislative proposal to amend the Constitution to entrench certain specialized funds transmitted as a message seeking concurrence of the Senate, recognizing the need for a bicameral approach on the proposal prior to publication of the relevant bill, acknowledging that the subject matter of the legislative proposal is premised on the mandate of Parliament under Article 256 of the Constitution on amendment of the Constitution by parliamentary initiative. Now, therefore, the Senate resolves, 1, to establish a joint parliamentary ad hoc committee on a proposal to amend the Constitution to entrench certain specialized funds comprising 11 members from each of the Houses of Parliament. 2, A, facilitate collation of views from senators during debate and inviting senators with similar or related proposal to make submissions before the committee. B, invite, engage with, and consider submissions from stakeholders and relevant constitutional statutory bodies with a law reform mandate, including the Attorney General and the commissions of independent offices established under Chapter 15 of the Constitution. C, in consultation with the sponsors, attempt to develop and recommend a harmonized version of the proposal arising from the submissions received, and D, report to the House of Parliament within 90 days to enable the speakers to make a decision and give direction on whether or not the legislative proposal is to be published into a bill or not to proceed with. 2, that the officers of the clerks of Houses of Parliament provide secretariat services to the Joint Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee in accordance with the standing orders. 3, that the following senators represent the Senate in the Joint Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee: Senator Wakili Hilary Kiprotich, Sigei, MP; Senator Raphael Chimera Mwenzangu, MP; Senator Veronica Waheti Ndwati, MP; Senator Samson Kiprotich Cherargei, MP; Senator William Cheptumo Kipkorir, CBS, MP; Senator Danson Buya Mungatana, MGH, MP; Senator Fatuma Adandulo, CBS, MP; Senator Hamida Kibwana, MP; Senator Andrew Omtata Okoiti, MP; Senator Catherine Muyeke Muma, MP; Senator Eric Okongo Mugeni, Senior Counsel, MP; Senator Paul Karugo Thangwa, MP; Senator Professor Tom Odhiambo Ojiende, Senior Counsel, MP. I therefore call the senators to make contributions on this motion. Senator Cheptumbo.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to contribute. Mr. Speaker, I support this motion. And Mr. Speaker, the motion is very clear as to the foundation why this ad hoc committee of the two houses is established. Mr. Speaker, the special funds, the CDF, for example, Mr. Speaker, has played a very critical role in the development of our country. Mr. Speaker, I served the National Assembly as member of Baringo North for 3 terms. And Mr. Speaker, what we were able to achieve as a constituency for those 15 years is clear to the society. I would actually say that if we didn't have CDF, perhaps the status of our schools, Mr. Speaker, and other institutions until 2013 when the new constitution came on board, so that then matters devolved to the county governments was removed from the funding of CDF. So it has done a lot. And so, Mr. Speaker, when the Supreme Court gave a ruling that suspended the disbursement of CDF, I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, from where we sit as leaders, it was a big, big challenge to our people. Bursary, for example, Mr. Speaker, was at the range of 35 million and above, if you apply the percentage that is allowed in the law. And so it has caused a lot of suffering. Mr. Speaker, especially in areas, the pastoral areas, Mr. Speaker, where the livelihood of our people to pay fees, even to have food, is livestock. Now they have all gone because of the drought. There's no hope. There's no other means to educate their children. And the bursary through the CDF, Mr. Speaker, was really key source of school fees. So, Mr. Speaker, there is a serious justification to really ensure that CDF continues to be applied. Not to mention, Mr. Speaker, this House. Mr. Speaker, you are given power under the Constitution to oversight, together with the county assemblies, on the expenditure of the resources allocated to the county assembly, the county governments. But we have no means of being able to do so, Mr. Speaker. Some counties, like the one I come from, or even where you come from, Mr. Speaker, are so fast. Kitui, for example, and many other counties, we are unable, Mr. Speaker, to execute our function under the Constitution of oversighting the usage, application of the resources that is given to the county governments. And when you look at even the other issue, Mr. Speaker, the other specialized funds, like the one for the women reps and so on, all this, Mr. Speaker, in totality goes a long way in improving the well-being of our people and enabling us to follow, as Honorable Kalwale said, so that we are able to execute our function in oversighting. So, Mr. Speaker, I support this. Mr. Speaker, I am happy also the way this motion is drafted, because it will not be the views of the few senators forming this committee. We are receiving views. We invite, we engage, consider submissions from stakeholders, relevant constitutional, statutory bodies, even the law reform, and including the Attorney General. Now he has given some direction in terms of release of CDF funds. We would like to hear from the Attorney General himself before this committee to tell us the legal foundation of how he was able even to allow that. Meaning, he's done his work well and is able to advise Treasury to release the money. Mr. Speaker, this is the fulfillment of Article 118. Public participation now, Mr. Speaker, is not optional. We have to allow Kenyans, we have to allow stakeholders, interested parties to come before this committee and give their views. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the membership of this committee from Senate, I want to say that, Mr. Speaker, some of them have legal minds. We have somebody like Andrew Omtata Okohiti, who has been very instrumental in filing petitions on public interest matters, and I'm happy he's a member here. And most of the members here will definitely add value to this as we go out to speak to our people. So, Mr. Speaker, I just want to say that it is indeed important. Mr. Speaker, over the years, we have had some bit of conflict between the two houses. When we say we are upper house, the other house says we are not. And so there has been that confusion. Today, Mr. Speaker, when I see the establishment of an ad hoc committee from the two houses, I think it is setting the right standard. So that from now henceforth, Mr. Speaker, we should not look at each other as different houses with suspicion. We should realize that under the Constitution, Article 95, Article 96, we have equal mandate to serve our people in this house. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to support and plead with members that let us pass this so that then we join. I'm sure the other side have already approved the members. We do this at the side so that within the 90 days, we are able to come back to the House with a report and move forward. I support, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Matinga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to support. Looking at the composition of the members, I have no doubt, Mr. Speaker, sir, that they have what it takes to do the mandate that has been given to them as in the ad hoc committee. Mr. Speaker, sir, I also happen to serve for 5 years as the chairman of the CDF Madera constituency when the current deputy president was the member of parliament. And I saw, as Mr. Speaker, sir, we were able to change all the 75 primary schools in Madera constituency. We were able to improve the security, the housing of the chiefs and the sub-chiefs, and we were also able to do impactful development and infrastructure development projects for the people of Mathera. I do therefore feel, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the CDF fund is one of the most impactful funds that the government has been able to get to the people down there at Mashinani. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am also alive to the fact that the role of the Senate is to oversight the execution of the works in the at the county level. However, Mr. Speaker, sir, we in the past, the Senate has been left with the role of doing post-mortem of what has been done by the governors and either okaying it or saying it was done wrongly. Mr. Speaker, sir, I think this is an intervention that comes only too late when the money has been lost, and I therefore feel establishment of oversight fund to enable the senators to participate right from the onset, the conceptualization of the projects, to the public participation, all the way to the implementation, will go a long way in avoiding funds or preventing funds being lost or being misappropriated by undertaking the long projects. I therefore feel this is also very, very important. In respect of our constitution, the way it is currently composed, these, without risking to get court litigations, can only be done through a constitutional amendment, and I therefore feel that it is the...
Can instantly reapply for the money. And because he has paid on time, Mr. Speaker, he will qualify for a slightly higher figure. Don't sell fear into our lowly educated people. Some of them were hustlers. Mr. Speaker, there is my cousin. He sells eggs, hawking. He hawks boiled eggs in Kakamega. If this guy, you give him 500 shillings, man, the guy buys a tray of eggs. He boils them and sells. He makes profit at the end of the day. Mr. Speaker, I have my other cousin called Shinabukoshe. Shinabukoshe pushes a truck, a handcart in Kakamega town. When he wakes up in the morning, he's supposed to pay 100 bob for him to get the handcart. So if he borrows 1,000 bob, 100, he'll pay for the handcart. Now he has a handcart. He'll quickly run with that handcart to the market and pick bagfuls of Irish potatoes, which have been brought in by trucks from Nyandarua. Then he'll drive the handcart very fast to Kayega. And at Kayega, the guy will sell. And at the end of the day, Shinabukoshe, my cousin, who does his business between Kayega and Kakamega, 4 kilometers apart. In the evening, the boy, when he's going home, the boy will be having 2,500 shillings. This is the way to go. Thank you, President Ruto, for this. My final comment on this, what you want to discuss with our people, is to thank the President for making his government all-inclusive, Mr. Speaker. Can you imagine? From independence, Mr. Speaker, never ever from independence have we found a foothold in government the way it has happened. Mr. Speaker, my region, the Chief Secretary, the Chief Cabinet Secretary from my region, the Speaker of the National Assembly from my region, Susan Nakumija, Minister from my region, Mr. Speaker, Ababu Namwamba, Minister from my region, Mr. Speaker, Susan Mangeni from my region, PS. Dr. Beatrice Nyangala from Kakamega, PS. James Mahati from Kakamega, PS. Mr. Speaker, Dr. Juma Mukhwana from my region, PS. Mr. Speaker, Professor Edward Kisiangani from my region, PS. Mr. Speaker, Madam Hadija Nganyi from my region, Commissioner for Revenue Allocation. We want to go home and celebrate with our people. Now we have a president who knows that we exist. And not to forget my own friends with whom I've worked for 6 years. In fact, the late Chogwe. The late Chogwe, the first Speaker of the Senate of Kenya, from the great people of Mijigenda. He danced in his grave. His bones cracked like this when he saw a man from the Mijigenda become the fourth Speaker of the Senate of Kenya. We have never had such an inclusion. I don't understand what Justice Matayo is still doing in the opposition with all this affirmative action. Griffy, Speaker. Griffy, Jumwa, Minister. Griffy, you should run. You'd run and come to the government side. Mr. Speaker, because he's not Murife don't run. He wants to run. With all those remarks, I move and invite...
What is your point of order, Senator Mazayo?
Asante Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, ni vile ndugu yangu amemaliza kuongea, lakini kama ningeweza kusema katika uwanja wa siasa kila mtu ana majukumu ya kuchagua pale anataka. Lakini kama unaongea ukipewa nafasi ya kuongea hapa, si uwanja wa kuanza kutongozana hapa na kuitana kuambia kuja pande hii. Mimi nafikiria niko vyema kabisa na niko sawa kabisa nikiwa upande huu wa upinzani, upande wa Baba Raila Amolo Odinga. Asante.
Senator Majority Whip, who is seconding your motion?
Let me just, Bwana Speaker, namshukuru ndugu yangu Justice Mathayo kwa ile uhuru yake ya kuamua msimamo. Sina shaka nayo, lakini nakuomba kwamba ujue wale ambao walikutangulia, na ndio sisi tumekuwa huko, tutajaribu ni sambamba na kuoa mwanamwali ambaye ni tasa. Mr. Speaker, ninamuomba bwana mheshimiwa Senator wa Baringo aje niunge mkono.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I arise to support this motion. And Mr. Speaker, this is my first term in this House. And we've been here, Mr. Speaker, for close to 3 months now. And the mover of this motion has been able to demonstrate to the House our performance for that short period of 2.5 to 3 months of this House. Mr. Speaker, prior to the new Constitution, 2010, the House of Parliament did not have a calendar as to when they will commence a session, when it will go on recess, when it will adjourn, and so on. That was purely left for the executive those days, Mr. Speaker. But today, Mr. Speaker, this House is able to determine its calendar. And so, Mr. Speaker, we are not adjourning, as said by Honorable Majority Whip, because we lack what to do. We are adjourning because, Mr. Speaker, we are doing so in accordance with our calendar. Because as we begin a session, our calendar is set. So that, Mr. Speaker, our time here, our programs are clearly laid out in the calendar of the House. And Mr. Speaker, as we adjourn this House today, it is important that to know that we've achieved a substantial degree of work in terms of those motions already passed. Mr. Speaker, this committee has even been able to visit some parts of the country. Mr. Speaker, I traveled all the way to Kitui with you to go and witness the security situation in Kitui County. And Mr. Speaker, today, we were able to lay the report of that visit before the House. And we were able to propose to government certain recommendations. When my committee, Mr. Speaker, had a session with the CS Interior, we were able to share with him some of the proposals in terms of, proposed recommendations to him. And so, Mr. Speaker, we have been able to respond. We have been able to respond as a House to the situations arising in various counties, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, yesterday we had a debate on the drought situation in Turkana. We were able to discuss the issue about the LAPSET project. So, Mr. Speaker, in those 3 months, I think this House, Mr. Speaker, has been able to demonstrate its ability to deal with matters touching on our people. Mr. Speaker, said again by the mover, already we passed the additional revenue to our counties. Mr. Speaker, a county like Baringo will receive about 6 billion Kenya shillings. That is not enough, Mr. Speaker, to deal with the challenges we have in Baringo in terms of health, in terms of ECD classes, in terms of matters of water and so on. So this House, before it proceeds on recess, Mr. Speaker, has been able to pass additional revenue to our counties. This, Mr. Speaker, will go a long way in supplementing the already allocated 6 billion, for example, for Baringo, so that we are able to achieve some of the needs of our people. Mr. Speaker, the insecurity in the country, the drought situation in the country, again, this House has been able to respond, either through statements or through motions. And so, Mr. Speaker, I am, from where I sit as a member of this House, being a new member in this House, Mr. Speaker, in this House, not in Parliament, that I think we have a reason to really appreciate this House for the work that's done. Mr. Speaker, even yourself, I believe you've done well as a member of the Speaker's panel, chairing our committees and so on. And I think this House, Mr. Speaker, has been able to really take us through. Mr. Speaker, something new is also beginning to arise in this House. The anticipated harmonious existence between National Assembly and this House is something that I think we have witnessed. And that is why today, Mr. Speaker, we have been able to pass a motion where we have a joint committee of National Assembly and of Senate. These are signs of progressive House, signs of a united House as we face the challenges, deal with the challenges facing our people. So, Mr. Speaker, I just want to thank members for the wonderful performance, and I believe, Mr. Speaker, as we go on this recess, we will not stop. Mr. Speaker, our work does not stop from this plenary. We will still also go back, Mr. Speaker, and interact with our people. And when we come back now, after the recess, we will be able again to enrich the House with the various issues that we have been able to learn during the holidays. I mean, not holidays, but during the recess, so that we are able again to bring more agenda for our House. Mr. Speaker, I support. Oh no, I second.
Thank you, Senator. Honorable Senators, I propose the question that pursuant to Standing Order 32.3, the Senate do adjourn until Tuesday, 14th February, 2023. Minority Leader, and we are going Since there is a lot of interest in the motion, we will have 5 minutes each.
I guess. Asante Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, mimi kama kiongozi ningeomba nipewe muda kidogo, hata nikizidisha dakika 5 itakuwa kama dakika 6, 7, 8. Bwana Spika, asante sana kwa kunipa nafasi hii. Ndugu yangu Cherargei anafurahi sana. Sijui ametoka huko kwenye vinywaji ama namna gani. Bwana Spika, kitu cha kwanza nataka kusema kwamba tokea kura zipigwe, maseneta wachaguliwe, wameingia ndani ya bunge, wameketi hapa, tumekuwa na ratiba za kazi nyingi, tumekuwa na shughuli nyingi, na maseneta wote katika hili bunge wamekuwa wakishirikiana kwa kuona ya kwamba mwanzo wa safari hii wameenda njia moja ya kuona ya kwamba tumefanyia Wakenya juhudi zao wanazozihitaji katika utendakazi wetu sisi kama maseneta. Bwana Spika, unaona kwamba wakati mwingi bado hatujaenda kuita ile kufanya kama vile tulikuwa tunafanya, na natumaini wakati wetu ukifika tutafanya kama hivyo. Kwamba tutachukua Senate tuipeleke mashinani. Tumekuwa hapa Nairobi. Kwa hiyo ingekuwa kitu kizuri Bwana Spika kwamba wakati tutaporudi itapatia nafasi ya kwenda mashinani, kwamba bunge letu la Senate likaweze kujulikana huko mashinani kwamba tunafanya kazi gani. Kwa hivi sasa Bwana Spika, ni wakati umefika. Naona muda umekwenda karibu miezi 3, 4 tumekuwa hapa pamoja, na ni wakati wa kwenda mapumzikoni. Naunga mkono hoja hii ya kwenda mapumzikoni ili watu wakaketi na familia zao, wakae wakila Christmas, wakipata mwaka mpya wakiwa pamoja. Manake wengine wameondoka nyumbani na mpaka sasa bado hawajarudi miezi 3, 4. Ikiwa huko kwenye nyumba yako, basi wewe kama seneta unajua nani anaweza kuwa anafanya kazi hiyo. Bwana Spika, nataka kusema pia vile vile ya kwamba serikali wakati tunaenda likizo, serikali izingatie sana kuona ya kwamba janga la njaa limetapakaa kila mahali katika Kenya. Lakini wale watu wanaoishi katika zile ardhi ambazo hazipati mazao ama mimea wamepigwa sana na mambo ya janga hili la njaa. Bwana Spika, ukiona kwamba mahali kama ikiwa imekithiri zaidi kwa hali kama Kilifi County, ambako serikali inatakana iweke mkazo zaidi, kama mahali kama Kilifi, mahali kama kule Garissa unakotoka, mahali kama Wajia, mahali kama Turkana, hayo ni maeneo ambayo yamekumbwa sana na baa la njaa. Na Spika, ikiwa tutakwenda kwa Krismasi, wengine wakiwa wanafurahi kwa Krismasi na wengine wanakufa na njaa, itakuwa sio nia njema ya kwamba serikali itaangalia watu wake wakifa. Ningeweka mkazo zaidi nikisema kwamba ni jukumu la serikali kuona kwamba hakuna Mkenya atapoteza maisha yake kwa sababu ya njaa ndani ya nchi yetu ya Kenya. Bwana Spika, umenipa muda wa kidogo, lakini nataka kujaliza zaidi nikisema ya kwamba polisi nao wakati wa holiday ama wakati wa likizo, tumekuwa tukiona wakati wote ukiwa kuna likizo kama ya Krismasi, mapolisi wanafurahikia sana kwa sababu ya kushika watu ambao wamechelewa ama kwenda kwenye vilabu kushika watu ovyo ovyo. Tunasema ya kwamba sasa ni wakati wa Kenya wafurahi kwa juhudi zao walizofanya mwaka mzima, na itakuwa jambo la kusikitisha ikiwa polisi watarejelea ule mfumo wao wa kushika watu pengine siku ya Ijumaa na kuachilia Jumatatu, ama kushika watu kiholela na kuwaambia watoe pesa. Hilo ni jambo la kusikitisha. Bwana Spika, la mwisho ni kwamba umesikia hata wewe ukiwa hapa, kuna huu sababu ya kununua watu. si kununua watu. Lakini wanasiasa wengi wanakumbwa na shida. Na inafika wakati wanasiasa wanaambiwa waende upande fulani. Na tumeshaanza kuona ya kwamba sasa ni hatari, kwa sababu tunaweza kuona kuna nia ama kuna njama ya kuvunja upinzani ndani ya taifa letu la Kenya. Lakini tunawaambia ndugu zetu ambao kwa mamlaka, mko kwa mamlaka sasa, nyinyi endeleeni, lakini sisi tunawaangalia. Lakini mambo ya kuruka upande huu na kuanza kununua watu ni jambo la aibu, kwamba wewe ni kiongozi uliyechaguliwa na wananchi, na ukifika hapa ndani ya bunge unageuza msimamo, unakuwa rangi nyingine, unaenda upande ule ambao wewe hukuchaguliwa nao, lakini unaenda kule kwa sababu ya kusisitiza maslahi yako. Hiyo ni jambo ambalo mimi nataka kuambia ndugu zangu ambao wako na tabia kama hizi, tuacheni. Ukichukua msimamo, hakuna kitu kizuri katika maisha kama msimamo. Kwa sababu hata kama hawa wameshinda ama walichukua uongozi, hawakuchukua uongozi kwa sababu hawakuwa na msimamo. Wao walikuwa na msimamo, ndio sababu wakachukua uongozi. Kwa hivyo sisi tunasema kwamba baada sasa tumesha keti katika mamlaka, tafadhali sisi kama wanasiasa tujifundishe kuwa na misimamo, tusiende pande hii ama pande hii. Kwa sababu unajua Bwana Spika, ni kwamba ukiwa umechaguliwa na chama fulani, itakuwa jambo la kusikitisha wewe ukishapita uondoke uende katika chama kingine, ama uende ukaangalie sera za chama kingine useme hicho ndio chama chako sasa kilichokuchagua. Bwana Spika, asante sana kwa muda.
Asante. Senator Cherargei Samson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this adjournment motion as per the tradition of the House. I think, Mr. Speaker, this was our first session post-election, and I want to begin by thanking Kenyans for conducting a peaceful election, even before, during, and after election. Secondly, I think for the new members, they continue to learn a lot in the House, and I think, Mr. Speaker, these are part of the calendar of the Senate and the Parliament as a whole. Mr. Speaker, even as we go for a recess, this is going to be a working recess, because this is the opportunity to spend time with your family, with your constituents, and be able to listen to their concerns, so that as we begin in February, the next session of 2023, we are able to get the truth of what is happening on the ground, Mr. Speaker. So I know in many, going into the future, we might be even called upon to come on special sitting on various issues that might arise that needs the attention of the Senate and the Republic of Kenya, Mr. Speaker. So this is a working recess. I want to wish my colleagues well, and I know we'll continue interacting. I know there will be committee business and many others that comes up. Mr. Speaker, secondly, I want to thank the President for launching the Hustlers Fund yesterday. Now we are seeing significant of Kenyans, above 1 million, continue to borrow money through the Hustler Fund that is 50 billion. I think what is disappointing our colleagues in the minority side, especially Senate Minority Leader, is that we are fulfilling the manifesto promises that we gave to Kenyans, because they had started accusing our government of saying not fulfilling the promises that we made. So I want to urge all Kenyans from across the political divide that this Hustler Fund belongs to you. Take it, do business, change your life. Because, Mr. Speaker, 1.2 million young people enter the market in every year, and therefore this Hustler Fund will go. And I want to assure the country, as we go into the future, President William Ruto administration will fulfill its campaign promises, including the issue of farmers, Mr. Speaker. We have already received subsidy. Now the fertilizer was 7,000. It's now during planting season of 2023. Mr. Speaker, will buy it with 3,500 back 50 kilos of fertilizer, Mr. Speaker. The third point, Mr. Speaker, is I want to thank the government for allowing us, the maize farmers, to deliver, harvest dry and deliver our maize up to 2023 February, Mr. Speaker. I want to call upon our farmers, especially maize farmers, that harvest your maize, dry it properly, take it to the millers, to cereals and produce board, Mr. Speaker, so that you can get a good price, Mr. Speaker. You know, when the CS of Trade says there is 10 million duty-free maize coming, The prices of maize came to 4,500. But after the cabinet of William Ruto sat and said that agree with us, Mr. Speaker, now the prices have gone to 5,400. But we are looking at the price of 7,000 per bag because it was expensive to plant, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of road safety during this festive season, I want to urge our former colleague, Senator Professor Kithure Kindiki, and other top organs in Homeland Security to put the necessary measures and mechanisms. It is sad that during festive season, we lose most of the Kenyans because they are traveling home. I want to appeal to the police and other sectors. Let us make our roads safe to ensure we reach our destination, and ask Kenyans who take 1 or 2 for the road, please don't drink and drive. And if you go slow, you will reach there. So why would you want to die by drinking and then you cause accident? You don't even kill yourself, you kill others on the road. So I want to ask that Kenyans that let us drive safely. Let us, if you want to take 1 or 2 for the roads, get a designated driver or even use a Uber or Bolt so that you can be dropped at your place, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and you know somebody say lightly, there are Kenyans who live abroad. This is the time they come back and they have been promising our girls that they will marry them. But now we will know. This is the season to know the truth, Mr. Speaker. Finally, I want to appeal to Kenyans even as we go for post-COVID Christmas. I think this is the second Christmas where we have been allowed without restrictions to move across the country. Let us enjoy with our families, but also as we celebrate this festive season, kindly spare something for our brothers and sisters who are suffering because of hunger and famine across the country. We hope to, the Deputy President will launch a pay bill. Let us contribute, even us from North Rift. If we have given an organized way of contributing our donation, I can assure you Kenyans will contribute and ensure that. Mr. Speaker, I also wish you well, even and other colleagues, as you go for your recess. Hope to see you as we go into the future of making sure that Senate works for us. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Abbas Sheikh Mohammed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the motion of adjournment. Mr. Speaker, this is a house of records and it's its own timelines, and I think it's the right time now that the program for first quarter is now coming to an end. It's not that we're tired, but we want to join the other rest of the other Kenyans to at least join them and work with them. Some of us are coming from counties with the stress because of the drought. We want to go and visit them. Awareness is very vast. Some of them we have not visited them, the part of our counties because of the vastness. Mr. Speaker, I think I want to thank this. This is my time. I'm first time in the Senate because I came from the National Assembly. And actually I was impressed. That's with the seriousness the members of the Senate are debating and the soberness and the way they are committed to the House debate and the rules and regulations. And therefore, I want us to continue the same spirit. And then one other thing is, Mr. Speaker, I want to wish Kenyans, because these are festivals of times of December, you know, when people go for holidays, there's a lot of traveling. And, you know, because of, you know, bad roads and the weather and, you know, careless drivers, there's a lot of accidents, so we need to exercise caution with all, you know, those who are traveling. And another thing is, actually, my friend Sergei has just gone out. He is now saying that he has bumper harvest from Rift Valley. So I want to appeal to the Rift Valley people to be kind enough and magnanimous to support their next of kins who are in Rift Valley who have been seriously affected, especially in Turkana. Their neighbors, so let's have good neighbor lines, that at least they should show to other Kenyans that because of the bumper harvest, they are able to send at least 100 tons of maize and other produces to Turkana, God willing. We will appeal to them, and my brother, the Senator Sergei, should lead the exercise to show the good gestures that Kenyans taking care of one another, build Kenya, feed Kenya, Kenyans for at least take care of one another. With those few remarks, I beg to support the motion of adjournment. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Wamatinga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. I also like to support. As I stand up, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would want, first of all, to thank all the members of this House for the maturity they have shown the last 3 months. Being a new member of the Senate, I expected politicians from both political divide to display some animosity. I must say that all of us held themselves with a lot of decorum. I therefore want to say thank you very much. As I also support this, Mr. Speaker, sir, I also want to take the opportunity to thank all Kenyans for having maintained peace during and after the elections. Specifically, I want to thank the people of Nyeri County for overwhelmingly electing me as their senator. As I do that, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want also to warn Kenyans at large. We are going into the Christmas festivities. There is always a tendency to spend like as if it is the last day. We must never forget that January is coming. We are taking kids back to school. As people engage in the mood of celebrating Christmas, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is important for us to remember in January, we are taking kids both in secondary school, and this time around, Mr. Speaker, sir, it's going to be the lower secondary and the upper secondary, and that is going to be quite demanding on the part of the parents. I therefore want to tell them to be very, 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 very sparsome and to know that there is life after Christmas. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would also want to commend the chairs who sat on that chair. You've guided us, specifically the new members. I would want to thank the staff, the Parliamentary Service Commission. They have shown a lot of dedication towards guiding us into the right path. It would be not in order if I don't say that I've never seen Kenyans committed in showing other Kenyans the right way like I've seen with the Parliamentary Service Commission. And maybe we should deploy them elsewhere. They show people what service with the dedication means. And for that, I want to thank them. As I sit down, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is also important to say that the leadership of the House, both the minority and the majority, have also been very, very effective in conducting their business, the House business. I am very impressed the way we've been able to regulate the things we've been doing, right from the induction all the way to the motions, statements, and the House business that has been handled in the House. However, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is with a lot of disappointment that I've realized that the time dedicated to the committees is a little bit too short for the business that needs to be transacted. And I would wish that when people go to recess, they are around 1 or 2 weeks to finalize on the business committees so that as we reopen the House, we will have enough business in the House. I therefore want to say, Mr. Speaker, sir, it has been very exciting to be around. I'm looking forward to resuming in February. As we take this recess, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is time to engage with our constituents, with the people who elected us. It is the time to go and explain what the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza government has achieved so far. The excitement of the Hustlers Fund that was launched yesterday, Mr. Speaker, sir, gives us a lot of work to explain to people how to go about it, and maybe even discuss with the young ones what kind of business and what kind of ventures they can undertake so that they benefit from the ventures. I therefore support, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Senator Gloria.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to support the motion of adjourning the House, the business of the House. I want to say that perhaps as Kenyans, we have to try and focus on the wins. It has not been all doom and gloom this year. We have gone through an election year, we have come out peacefully, we have actually united the country even after the election. So I think we need to focus on the wins. We need to focus on the fact that finally we have a government that actually respects law and order. A government that decided that we are going to respect the processes within the judicial service and appointed the judges that were there. We also need to understand that there are some wins in terms of women being recognized and being, allowed to sit at the table. Look at the cabinet. Look at how many women we have there. Look at how many women we have even in the House leadership. It's not all doom and gloom. We are actually making progress towards the right direction. We also have to celebrate the fact that this country has actually now started dealing with politics of issues. When you look at the short period of time that the Kenya Kwanza government has been in place, we have gotten strategic partnerships, with the UK, with Korea, with US. So it's not all doom and gloom. And also, I think the biggest achievement and the celebration that we should be talking about, particularly this week, is the Hustler Fund. People said it's not doable. People said it is impossible to actually uplift the people at the bottom of the food chain. But we finally actually have the Hustler Fund. And I want to urge the Kenyans, as we go on this recess, to reflect on how we can actually try to be patriotic. It is time that we love our country. It is time that we try to push for development in this country. And you know what, Mr. Speaker? I want to thank our president for actually working and deciding that even after a highly an election year that was really, sensitive, he has chosen to work with every single party, everyone in this country, whichever political divide that you are in. And I want to say that, finally, when we come back, we should come back ready to legislate, to play oversight, but most importantly, we should come back ready to fight corruption with new energy and new spirit to place oversight on our counties so that we do not have, funds that are actually being misappropriated. We should come back ready to eradicate poverty and hunger, because it can be done through legislation, through pushing on policies and playing oversight on the counties to ensure that they're using the funds effectively. And I think we should come back ready to build this nation. It's not all about politics. We are actually elected and nominated to be change makers through this house, to be change makers through the positions that we hold. And so, Mr. Speaker, I'm looking forward to being in the house again. Being a new senator, I would say it's actually a very active and vibrant house, and I thank you for this time.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Paris-Tobiko.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I rise to support the adjournment motion, and I'm grateful to God that for getting this time and for being here. It's been an amazing 3 months at the Senate. I really thank God, and I thank my party, UDA, and my party leader that I found way into the 4th Senate of the 13th Parliament. And it's amazing. It's really amazing. It has been a time we have passed legislation, a time that we have seen diversity of this country, of the counties, and of the various regions of this country, and their needs, their priorities, and their aspirations. And I thank my party that we are here. I thank the President for the Hustler Fund, particularly. And the most exciting thing about the Hustler Fund is that there are no committees, there are no boards. It's between you, your handset, and your faithfulness to repay the loan. And so I will urge young Kenyans, I will urge people of small businesses to take advantage of this fund. I am sure it's better than Fuliza and better than any other existing facility so far. And so I think this is good. I think also we've been able to pass motions in this House and statements. Particularly, I think for the last 3 months, we have been speaking about the drought that has affected more than half of this country. And we need to seriously, as we go on recess and be with our families, we all need on individual levels and collectively to address the issues of climate change. So we should encourage all Kenyans, all of us, to plant trees so that we can bring back, our environment into a livable standards and situations, because at the moment, I think the environment is not friendly for our survival. I'm also excited to have been part of a very exciting campaign time. It was not easy. I think we all went through it, and tempers were glaring, but we are all together now as a country and ready to move forward as a country. It is exciting to see that we relate well together with members of the minority side, and that we are all speaking on issues that affect all Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, as we go home, as we go back to our counties, we need to urge Kenyans to drive safe on roads. We need to urge Kenyans to think seriously about the next year, how we are going to organize our education system, because I think it has a lot to be addressed. Mr. Speaker, we need to address the issue of joblessness in this country. There are quite a number of issues, but I would say we have begun well. We are right on track, and I am sure the Kenya Kwanza government is going to take this country to another level. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Julius Murgo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I too join my colleagues in supporting the recess, and I'm very grateful to my people of the county of West Pokot for giving me the opportunity to represent them in this great house. And I also thank Kenyans generally for the election period that we had, an election that is not like any other before because of the peacefulness that there was. There wasn't any, even one stone thrown at any Kenyan. And our president had talked about it before and said that no blood of a Kenyan will ever be spilled again because of elections. And it actually came true because it was practically that. And so I'm very grateful to all Kenyans that we held a very peaceful election. And not only Kenya, but we became an example in the whole of Africa and the world for that fact that we held an election that the experiences that we had before were not realized at this time. And so we thank God for that. Having come here, for some of us, I'm not that new because I was in Parliament in the 10th Parliament. And so, but being in Senate was a learning experience, like the new colleagues that I knew and that have expressed the fact that this time of Parliament became a learning session and a learning time. And when I first came here, there was sort of an activity from the opposition side or the minority side that I thought it was going to be the practice, and that is when they walked out of a session. And so I thought that it was going to be the practice, but good enough, things have changed such that we have peacefully coexisted and debated well in the House. So I call it that we are going into a recess that is full of work to do with hustler funds, because we actually are the ones that are going to answer wananchi. A lot of questions will be asked, and we are the ones that will be placed in the position of answering those questions. And then also, we are going to be faced with a lot of situations about hunger and famine and starvation and a lot of that. And so that is why I call it that it is going to be a working session for us, or break for us, and a lot of joblessness also, and therefore it's going to be also a lot of responsibility for us as members of the Senate. And so I join hands with my colleagues in support. So I support. Thank you.
We still have 2 members who would like to contribute. We shall extend our sitting with another 5 minutes. So if we can rush. Senator Mohammed Said Chute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I rise in support of the adjournment motion. And let me take this opportunity to thank my Almighty God for this opportunity, and also at the same time thank the people of Marsabit for electing me into this honorable house. I would also want to thank our president for the Hustler Fund, which looks quite successful for now. I would also want to thank the Speaker of this House and the honorable members. Mr. Speaker, as we celebrate this festive season, I'll urge the Inspector General of Police to secure the road between Achas Post and Merile, which is prone to bandit attacks. People are suffering, losing lives and property. We have 17 police barriers between between Moyale and Isiolo. And I will urge the Inspector General to use the resources to assist on securing that road, which is between Achas and Merile. Mr. Speaker, I would also want to thank our President for appointing the Deputy President to manage the disaster fund. And I would request the Deputy President to call leaders from those affected areas so that we can discuss and deliberate on this issue of famine. Our people are suffering. And at the same time, I'll request the Deputy President to look at also animal feed. The President, with his wisdom, reduced the prices for fertilizer from around 6,500 to less than 3,500. Yes, our brothers in the Rift Valley and Central Kenya are farmers, but we are also farmers, but livestock farmers. We need incentives from the President, through the Deputy President, to see if the prices of animal feed will be reduced to almost about 50%. The prices currently are running at 2,000 per bag. If the prices are reduced down to 1,000, we will be helped a lot. Mr. Speaker, finally, I would want to what my member senator said. When we started this Senate, our friends walked out. And today, I think I'm happy to see that we are working together as one people, as people also from one country. Finally, I would like to say Happy Jamhuri Day, Merry Christmas, and a happy, prosperous New Year to all Kenyans. And I beg to support the adjournment motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator James Lomonen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, I rise to support this adjournment motion. First and foremost, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Almighty God for giving us this opportunity for discussing crucial and fundamental issues that concerns our country, our respective counties. I know the Bible says that seek ye the kingdom of God first, and the other things will come later. I thank God because God has strengthened us. He has given us enough energy to withstand the challenges faced by this nation. Mr. Speaker, I know this recess is not just to go to our respective counties and rest. I know it is a second phase. We have started a first phase. Second phase is a phase of consulting with the people who voted for you. They are supposed to evaluate you. They are supposed to assess you. And then, after consulting them, we come with a new spirit, because they have been given, they will have given us mandate to come in another chance to sit in this house and contribute very important issues. But Speaker, I know we are in recess, but the problem that I encountered by our counties are not in recess. For example, drought is not in recess. Anger is not in recess. Disease is not in recess. So, this is not in recess. Corruption is not in recess. So, that's why I say it is an ample time that God has given us to meditate, imagine, for critical issues that affect this community. Mr. Speaker, I want also to congratulate this House. This is my third term. For the first 2 terms, I've been in National Assembly. But I just want to be put in record that we were 349 members of Parliament. For you to just get an opportunity to say a statement, it was just so difficult, like going to heaven or Canaan. But here, it's so simple. There is no discrimination. There is no biasness. People are committed to the issues you raise. They don't see your face. They don't see your dressing. They don't know where you have come from. They see the facts on the table, the premises on the table. So it is very important, and just to be so happy, Mr. Speaker. This is since I came into to represent people of Turkana, this is the first time I have moved a motion. It is not that I do not have contents, but the opportunity. The opportunity was not there. But here, I now want to thank God because it was the will of God for me to be here. And this is the best time, best moment, and the best place to represent people of Turkana County. And wherever they are, I want to praise them, I want to thank them, I want to congratulate them. And then we will be together now and then. May God bless them and bless our speaker. Thank you.
Honorable Senators, there being no other business on the order paper, the Senate stands adjourned until Tuesday, 14th February 2023 at 2:30 p.m. I take this early opportunity to wish you all a peaceful and restful recess, a happy holidays, and a Merry Christmas, and a prosperous New Year come 2023. Thank you all.